Hello, hello. This is Tom from Chief of Staff Network, and I've got with me Andrew, who's the co-founder and CEO of Taxwire. Welcome, Andrew.
Okay, sir. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So tell me, what does Taxwire do?
We do global sales tax compliance. So if you sell taxable stuff in multiple US states or countries, we do all of the stuff that goes into understanding what you need to do, registering, and ultimately like calculating, filing, and remitting those taxes all around the world. So it's effectively like a like SaaS platform for automating most of the ongoing stuff. And then we kind of have like a AI enabled like in-house tax team that kind of like manages some of the services around it as well.
Cool. Everybody hates taxes. Why is this important? What is
Yeah.
this even an issue for most
It's,
companies?
I'd say we'd probably be the worst business in the world if it wasn't like literally illegal to not do taxes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be one of those things that no one would ever want to do. And it's like a pro and con of being in the space, but because it's a legally required thing to do, like you have to do taxes. So effectively, like it's like cover you have to. It's like CYA, cover your ass. Like you have to do it. It costs you big money in our case if you don't do it. And then like you kind of probably get fired if you like do it super incorrectly as like a controller CFO person. And so, yeah, that's it. And it's also just, it's become a lot more complicated in the last 5 to 10 years with a bunch of changes in US and international tax laws to where now companies have to collect sales tax or value added tax in way more places than they used to. And a bunch of the existing solutions on the market are pretty terrible. At least in my experience, were pretty terrible. And that's why we started Taxwire.
Nice. So you work with a lot of early stage finance teams. What do you think the ideal early stage finance team looks like?
Yeah. So most of our, just for context, the majority of our customers are either accounting firms, like the fractional finance team, like fractional controller or something like that,
Yeah.
or like controller and CFO at like a growth stage company of some kind, like mid market. And so I'd say these days it's interesting. I think honestly, it usually starts with like there's probably a chief of staff or biz ops person that like takes it off the founder's plate early on, or they're just like they've got like a really great full stack accounting firm doing everything the founder just oversees. That's kind of what you see at seed stage and maybe like Series A. Probably around like Series B plus, you see a head of finance, a VP of finance, someone like that come in, and they're kind of still an accounting firm in place. They're overseeing everything. And then at some point, as it like you and you literally, I've like watched this happen now with some of our customers. You'll see a controller come in probably around that time, but they might go like with like VP of finance just or VP of finance plus a controller for like a really long time. Like these days, I think you're seeing companies like do that up to like even in some cases like 70 to 100 million in revenue in a few cases without any. They might have some fractional help on like tax and stuff like that, but it's pretty lean these days. And I think a lot of the tooling, this is a thing people are excited about now, is like more tooling to effectively like make it easier for those companies to go as far as possible with a very lean team.
Makes sense, and especially if it's ideal that you're running at a negative gross margin, right? Then,
Yeah, literally,
yeah.
literally, yeah.
So, obviously, kind of the stack is going to change a lot as you scale up as well. What are the tools of choice that you're seeing across the best finance teams today, other than
Yeah,
Taxwater, of course?
of course,
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah. Gotta show ourselves there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say there's kind of like the back office HR like the compliance set, so like sales tax compliance, VAT compliance. There's like you'll usually see for payroll and HR, you might see like a Rippling, JustWorks, in the US side, maybe like Deal if they're doing a lot of stuff internationally. Those are, I'd say, like once the finance team is in charge, honestly, you do see Rippling replace Gusto quite a bit. So it's like probably is Rippling or JustWorks, I'd say are the two most common. And then maybe something else for the international side of things. You might have like a Mosey or something like that in there for doing like Secretary of State and stuff. And then you'll probably see like an account like a tax firm like a Ribbit Tax or someone like that out there for or like maybe a bigger more traditional firm doing income taxes. And so those are like mix of service and software. And then Ramp is by far the one you see everybody using in the on like the cards and expense management side of things. It is like hands down like probably the most loved product in the stack right now for like controllers and finance teams. And they just like their customers love them, and it's really impressive. Rippling actually probably not as loved. Maybe I should say this, probably not as loved as it used to be, but like people
Interesting.
like are on it. But I do see a lot of unhappiness with it these days. I think Rillet is one we're seeing a lot more of. Like those guys have done a really good job on the ERP side for tech companies, and we're seeing a lot more folks move over to them. So Rillet is like really up and coming and giving NetSuite a run for their money. Like usually it's QuickBooks and people are like hanging on to QuickBooks for as long as possible because no one wants to go to NetSuite. And then at some point they either go to NetSuite when they hit that like maybe like multi-entity point, or now you're seeing people start to look at newer ERPs like Relay. And then at some point when like the transactional complexity is getting up high, you might like around like 50, 70, 100 million in revenue, depending on the business model, you might see like a close management tool like a Flowcast or a.
That's great. Yeah, definitely. If you haven't made the move to NetSuite yet, I would strongly consider not doing for anybody who's listening.
coming from someone who knows the pain.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So one thing I think most of those companies are building a narrative around, and you're seeing it kind of across the ecosystem, like the finance plus AI thing. How real is that? Are you seeing companies actually use AI to do any mission critical tasks, or is that we're not there yet?
It's both real and it's a little bit bullshit. It is like what I would say. There's on the real. I think right now, like AI, this is probably true in other industries as well. I think it is not in actual practical use cases. I don't think we're as far as like definitely software engineering or some other fields, like legal, for example, in the finance accounting stack. And I think the reason for that is because it is so deterministic. And so like often you can't be wrong, or you like need to be highly precise, that large language models hallucinate. They're not always right. Getting all the context there is really hard.
And so I think that AI there.
Yeah. And so like you don't want to do, no one wants their tax engine to be like, like maybe it's wrong 10% of the time. No one wants that. And so like it's I think that's one of the things holding it back. And so even where you do see AI being effective in that side of things, it's usually from someone who actually controls a very key deterministic workflow, or like source of truth at the bottom. So in expense management, like the reason Ramp has been so good at automating a lot of the stuff in and around the expense process or bill pay process has been because they have deterministic financial rails that are like not going to be wrong. And so they're able to like build like mini agents or like use large language models around those deterministic rails, and they can be much more effective because you're effectively constraining the ability for hallucination and just like confining it to this like very specific problem on top of something that won't be wrong. Same thing in like ERP. Rillet is like built a lot of small agents around their rails. Like we're doing some of this to an extent around like just our engine won't be wrong, but what we've found is that's really, really effective with taking unstructured data and putting it into your structure. I honestly think a lot of the things are small, actually. Small workflow that maybe takes like an hour a week or 2 hours a month, but it's like a lot of small things that you see where it's being effective versus like the whole product. I think I think that's like the stuff that's working on the software side. But I think the couple other observations, I think a lot of people, I had a guy in SF at a very high office of the CFO, like AI-ish company, they tell me this, of like a lot of the features they have that are like AI oriented are great for marketing and great for getting people excited on demos, but are really not the biggest actual value of the product. But they like lean into it really aggressively in marketing and sales because it is like bringing in a lot of business. And so I think you're seeing right now that like everybody has to tell the narrative, because to some extent there is some truth there. But even if the narrative is larger than like what's working today, it's what people want to hear and people are excited about it. And so I think there is like a lot of hype for good reason, but also because it works from a marketing perspective. I think the thing that's even more real than like what software vendors are doing is that like just individual people at like these like smaller finance teams are like just kind of like vibe coding stuff or like using ChatGPT to like do a lot of their own like automation. I think there's just as much happening with like the out of the box tools to make stuff faster, easier, etc., as there is from like your SaaS tool is getting agentified or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're definitely seeing a lot of that in other in like the chief of staff and biz ops roles as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna do a little bit of a tweet review because you've been putting out some bangers recently.
Oh gosh. I'm always nervous when someone's like actually making me back up the random stuff I say on the internet.
Look, that's the whole point, right? We're gonna hold you accountable. Cool. Okay, so starting out here, you tweeted that more young people should position themselves to join companies as interns or AI ops people to automate stuff across businesses. What are you seeing there that's been interesting?
Yeah, and this was prompted a little bit by just like I get enough like inbound and pitches on like, let me come work at Taxwire or do this
strategy for you.
Yeah. like you see that, but then also just like looking at what I'm seeing some customers hire for, or I was actually just at an accounting conference, like accounting firm conference, and it was really interesting to see there were a couple like young kids there. They were like not even one of them hadn't even graduated, but he was like super like AI native and like was just like really like way advanced on like how to use AI to like automate a lot of small stuff. And he was actually like, I bet he probably walked out of that conference with like 5 job offers from different firm owners who like wanted that in their firm. And so I think this tweet to me was just like, I think if I was young and getting started out today and I didn't know what like the hell to do, you have time, honestly, more so than a lot of other people. And like there is no like, you're not behind a bunch of people that are AI experts, because like everybody's like figuring this stuff out. So if you actually wanted to like get an opportunity and you don't have like much on paper to offer, learn how to use these tools like the out of the box ones, ChatGPT, the vibe coding tools like Lovable. Actually, like our chief of staff like pitched me initially. I'm working together off like a prototype he built on Lovable, and then like figure out like how to automate stuff and just come in and pitch yourself as like, hey, I may not have a lot of traditional experience, but I know like how to use all of these tools. I can prove it with some of the like proof of work that I've done here, and here. And I think I could come in and like just make the whole company way more efficient and automate a bunch of stuff. I'd be like, if someone sent me a cold email like with some pitch to that effect, and like the smallest bit of proof of work, I'd be like, I would totally respond to that. I would like 100% respond to that. And I get a lot of cold emails, and I think like, no, I don't see I'm aware of a few people doing this, but I think this is like a huge opportunity. If you're just young right now and want an opportunity to just go do this. And this is way better than doing what everybody else is doing, or they're just spamming out the same emails at like effectively offering no value and like trying to cut through the noise. It's like, it's a losing battle versus you could totally do this. And I actually think a lot of companies would be very excited to hire young people, like positioning themselves this way.
That's super smart. It's not a volume game. It's showing that you actually care about the company that you want to go to.
Yeah. And I actually think it's hard to find. It's not easy necessarily to find people that are super well versed in all of these tools, because many of them are so new and changing so quickly that I think this is actually an area where you can build some pretty differentiated value that you won't have as much competition in.
Absolutely. So speaking of caring, talk a little bit about how you're building Taxwire and the company culture that you're trying to build.
Yeah, I think culture's funny. Like I think we care about it, but it's one of those things that I think you think you're gonna write some stuff down in a document, in your careers page, whatever, and you're gonna have, and that this is gonna be our culture. And I think what actually happens, or I found to happen, is that you have some intentions, but like what will actually happen will be emergent of like who you already are as a person, the company you're building, what you try to do somewhat intentionally, but then also what happens unintentionally. And then, but very much the early people you hire, all of that stuff kind of forms and molds into the culture that you have. And this is why I actually think you see a lot of companies where they like write their mission statement or their values, and it's totally unaligned with what is like actually reality, is because all of this stuff, it's not like you can write it down and it not totally be true. It's really like Graham and David and like all of the people we've hired and like the first 12 or so folks at Taxwire have influenced the culture. Maybe not exactly as much as me and Steven as founders, but like close. And they've been really like involved in that. And I don't think you can just like take one person. So anyway, I think that's just been like more of an observation that it is emergent. It's not necessarily something you just do purely tops down. I think what I found is that there are like threads of like what we've had to do to succeed as a company and the type of people that we brought on that have emerged as like big values. And as we see those things, we've tried to get more explicit about what those are. So for example, like we are in an industry where like being wrong is like big cost both to us and to our customers. And so we like really care about sweat the details, for example, because we have to sweat the details or like our customers aren't going to trust us. And so like that's like an example, but that was not a thing that I think I would have written down at the start of the company. It was a thing that emerged from the type of company that we had to build and the type of people we had to recruit. So I think just like figuring out like what those things actually are and then trying to crystallize them such that you can then like, once you kind of see, oh, this is a thing we do care about, even if we didn't write it down at some point, then you write it down, then you make it clear, then you talk about it to future recruits, then you make it a thing that you communicate to the company and everybody can kind of rally around. I think that's probably like one big one. The other one is probably more of just an observation that I think we have from right now in tech, and I think that's what this tweet is about. There's a lot of like talk about 996 and working tons of hours, and it's very like it comes from China and Chinese culture, and especially in tech, it's big on 996. You work 9 hour, I think it's like 9 to 9, 6 days a week, effectively. And I honestly probably work more than 996 right now. And so like, it's not even that like that inherently is a bad thing, but I think it is like missing the point a little bit. And the point is, all that matters is the outcome, kind of, in the grand scheme of things, and you need to work as hard as it takes to win. And at a certain point, actually working more is like not effective, because if you generally, most of us are not just like working in factories these days. We're like working knowledge work jobs where like leverage matters. And so I think what we found is like it's the outcome matters. Driving people to work a ton of hours just for the sake of it isn't useful. Like sometimes the best thing for your team to do is to like go sleep and go get rest. And I'm like actually a big fan of sleep. Whenever I've not slept enough, I'm like definitely not the best at what I do. And so I could theoretically cut 2 hours of sleep a day and get more hours of work a week. And I'd probably be way shittier at my job, even though I've like picked up like extra working hours. And so our take on this is, and so we've literally never once like set like, we expect you to work this many hours a week. We need you to be working this weekend. We just like, we hire people that we think care, that we think are going to work hard. And then we like try to like communicate like this like shared mission, and that we all have like equity and compensation and like a desire to go like accomplish. And then it's just like, this is what we need to do. Like, let's go do that thing. And the desire to work hard and work extra hours and work on weekends and like be thinking about work outside of when you're actually working all emerges from that. I've never, like, people at Taxwire do sometimes work weekends and are like, I think do care a lot about their work and do work really hard. But it's not because I ever sat down one day. It's like, guys, we're going 996 now because all the YC kids are doing it. And therefore, like we have to do this to like win in this like era. Like, I think you see a lot of that now. And I just think that's like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a shitty CEO. Like that could be it. But I don't even think I could do that authentically, because most of the people that work at Taxwire are older than me. And so it's like, they're gonna like look at me and like, are you a dork? Like, I'm like rambling here, but you hire great people, set like, you align incentives, and you set like a correct like vision that everybody's like aligned around. And then the work will emerge, organically from that. And I think just like, I think a lot of this like stuff around like 996 and stuff is it's like focusing on the wrong thing. And I think if anything, it's dangerous for like a lot of young founders out there, because I think a lot of people are just doing it because it's become a meme now, and I think it's like what they should do versus and I think if anything, you're just going to come off like a very inauthentic leader.
I think it's the classic Silicon Valley thing of like, once something seems to be working, then everybody copies that thing, regardless of whether they're actually copying it the right way. They don't think about they think about just like copying the pattern, not about like why it matters.
100%.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll pause it there. We're having this conversation in part because you're coming to Chief of Staff Connect, our Chief of Staff Network conference in New York, October 23rd, 24th.
Super pumped.
We're pumped to have you. Chiefs of Staff, are they thinking about sales tax? Are they thinking about building finance teams at companies?
Funnily enough, like we're seeing more of this, which has like been surprising for me. We have like we have a handful of customers that are like our chiefs of staff. That's like effectively kind of, I think the thing, and you would know this even better than me, but about being a chief of staff is you end up like owning, especially at an early stage company. This is probably not true at like series C, but at like a seed or series A or even series B company, a lot of times you wear like so many hats, and effectively can end up like owning the finance hat, because there is no head of finance or there is no controller in-house. And so you're overseeing all the stuff that has to get done at the company, and that being one of them. And so we've got several customers that are chiefs of staff at different high growth companies. And so I think that's like been like one thread of like, well, like, and we've kind of introduced some like startup pricing and stuff too, to like try to like be ideal for those folks. And so I think that's part of it, is just like pragmatically, it's like there's a time where they can make great customers for Taxwire. But it's usually because it's like, oh, hey, like we're like growing really fast and we don't want to hire a finance person yet, but like we should probably be collecting sales tax. And I don't know anything about taxes and I have like no time. And so effectively we can like take that off their plate, hopefully. But then I think I've actually come around to the existence of the chief of staff role more than I had. I used to be a bit of a hater, at least pre-traction.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like it was a very like, not bullshit role, but like I felt like it was a role where I felt like it's hard to put it exactly, but I felt like a lot of the people that wanted to do the role were like the wrong people to like do that thing. But if
you're not building, you're not selling, you're not. Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
But there is actually like generally people say build sell, and that is true. But I think, and I actually would say a lot of chiefs of staff do actually sell. Yeah. And so like that is like one common thing.
And some build too.
Yeah, totally. Build, sell. I think AI is making this even more interesting now because the shit
Yes.
David on our team can do, for example, because he is probably one of the most AI native people on our team. He like did the first pass at like our, we were like looking at expanding into international tax. And our head of tax was like very busy with another thing. And we were in the middle of hiring a full-time international tax person, but she wasn't going to start yet. And he ended up doing the first pass at like getting everything going on like international tax research before like our tax team could focus on it. It was like pretty good. It was like our head of tax was like, that was like pretty good. That saved me a bunch of time. And
Nice.
so like, and it's like he doesn't even didn't know anything about tax before this. And so I think like great chiefs of staff at early stage companies, it's less about the like status that I think that role sometimes has, and it's more about you just do whatever it takes to win. And I think the chief of staff role is interesting because it's very hybrid across. You're effectively like what besides building and selling, one thing that is valuable is giving leverage to the people that are building and selling. And great chiefs of staff do that for founders. They do that for the rest of the team. They will give like the team leverage to just do more of what they're doing, but do it with higher velocity and higher scale. And then actually part of that is like building. But David's like fixed a bunch of our RevOps stuff because like I had like no time to do it. And sometimes I think like I know a bunch of great chiefs of staff that are like really, really great salespeople or BD people or whatever. And so I think it's like a really interesting role for like the generalist in startups. And I think the best, and I think David, who's like part of the chief of staff network, and another reason why we're excited about this is he's had a great experience. It's just like it's those people work super hard and they eat like a lot of shit for the company, and it's and those are like the warriors in startups that like help you win.
Amazing. Well, excited to see you at Chief of Staff Connect. If you haven't gotten your
Excited to
ticket
be
yet,
there.
you should definitely get it.
Buy your
Talk to
ticket.
Andrew and David,
Yes.
and check out Taxwire so you don't get the government coming after you.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. We will
Yeah,
protect you from the government.
that's good. That's good. All right. Well, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you for having me, sir.
Yep. Bye.